Hey guys, this is Community Starcraft 2. I'm your host Sidewinder, as you can see from my picture up here. Today I'm going to be actually doing something I did before, but I don't think that I did very well. And it is going to be a Terran macro tutorial. And for this particular tutorial, I'm going to be playing against just a very easy computer, which yes, I know it is not any sort of challenge, but I just want to have us focusing on one player in real time, which is me, and show you in a real game, in a one-on-one game, how you would supposed to be. I can speak English, I swear. How you would want to macro appropriately if you were just fighting anybody on the ladder or in any typical one-on-one game. For you beginners out there that are having trouble picking up the game, hopefully this video will shed some light on it. So I'm going to go ahead and start. We're going to sit here and watch the loading screen, and I'm going to be actually pausing this quite a bit to demonstrate a couple of different things. I'm going to go through this pretty fast, so try and keep up. I'll explain everything that I do so that I'm not just blowing through this and it's not so that something you're just watching and getting lost. But I think watching somebody play as they're explaining it is a easy way to learn. And yes, I'm talking and playing at the same time, so you'll probably hear my keyboard and mouse really going crazy here, but we'll get underway. First thing you're going to want to do, if my computer would start loading, is that what I did there is I started a workers, you can see on my command center, and I selected all my SCVs and assigned them to the closest mineral patch. If you do it in the order of making a worker and then assigning your workers to get to work, you will miss less time on your SCV production. Now, considering this macro essentially means your ability to mine resources and turn that into army units so that you can go fight your opponent. And macro is essentially going to dictate the speed at which you play. And the faster you play, the better you're going to play as a general rule. So we're going to show you a very fast tempo on your macro and show you exactly how the game looks from a skilled user's perspective, so you can get an idea of how you should be playing your own game. So we're going to go ahead and resume. I'm going to assign this to a open mineral patch, which there's some other stuff I could show you either way, but what you're going to want to do is actually hit this SCV production, or rather hit this SCV button so that you can keep your SCVs going constantly. For Terran, you're going to actually make SCVs up to 10.
Not enough.
Again, don't miss any time on these SCVs, so as soon as one finishes, you want to have another one ready to go. You want to always do this for as long as you possibly can. Don't miss any gaps in your SCV unless you have a good reason to. Now, this is where we're going to deviate. You're going to make SCVs up to 10. And I have my 10th SCV in there because if you can count how many SCVs we have here, we have 8. There's a 9th in production. He's going to eat up supply. The 10th does not eat up supply, so once we get up to 10, we're going to wait until we get 100 minerals and drop a supply depot so that we do not get supply blocked. We can keep our SCVs going constantly. So we're going to go ahead and resume. Waiting for that 100 minerals, and as soon as we get it, we're going to pull an SCV and have him build it pretty close to the resources.
Yeah, whatever.
And again, we're going to head back over to our command center. Make sure you have another SCV in queue, so that, again, we're not missing any time here. I might miss a little bit of time when the supply depot is about to finish, which is okay, but still you're mining as fast as you possibly can. From here, you're going to jump into your next stage of what you're going to want to do. And for Terrans, you're definitely going to want to drop a barracks, usually on 12 supply, which is going to be right now. So I'm going to pull an SCV, I'll start a barracks, and then at the same time, I like to scout about this time, so we're going to go ahead and scout. Now, I need to jump back on this and make another SCV because that last one was almost done. But what we've done so far is we're about 1:45 in, our barracks is down, we have 12 SCVs, we're about to make our 13th as soon as we unpause it. From here, we're actually going to go straight into ramping up for the next stage of the game. This all happens really fast, I know. But if you are a new player, you can see the speed at which you need to be playing this opening part of the game, and this speed is going to dictate how quickly you're able to advance in the game. Now, if I were missing SCVs, if I was not placing my supply depot down at the right time, I would be behind. I might get this up at 1:55, 2 minutes. Which, you might say big deal, 20 seconds or 15 seconds, whatever. But that's actually a huge deal because if you let your opponent get ahead of you by that much time, that's all the larger amount of workers, or rather amount of army they're going to have to come and kill you later. So what we're going to be doing in this particular game is I selected to fight Protoss. We're going to be going for a pretty common bio build versus Protoss, and we're going to be expanding at a fairly normal time. I mean, it's not a very aggressive expansion, but we'll cover that once we get to it. Excuse me. So, another thing I'm going to mention here, while it's on my mind, is that every one of your SCVs that's not working means you're losing mining time. Unfortunately for Terran, yes, you do have to pull an SCV aside and have him stay with the building until it is done building before you assign him back to the patches. I don't remember if I did. I don't think I did, but typically once you tell them to do something, either queue up another action or just send them back to the mineral line. And you can do this by having your SCV selected, holding shift on your keyboard, and then right-clicking these mineral patches. It's usually a really good habit to get into to make sure your SCVs are always working as much as possible. If your SCVs are not working, whether they're building or scouting or doing whatever, you're losing resources by not having them at work. So make sure you get them back on the mineral patches, which I'm going to do here in just a second, but I do need to start another SCV. As soon as or rather, I'm going to also throw down a gas geyser, or rather a refinery, on about 13 or 14, just so I can get my gas income going, which I'll explain why I'm going to throw it down at that time in just a moment. So here we go.
SCV ready.
I'm going to reassign this SCV back to the mineral patches, which again, you can see that line going back there. I'm going to start my gas, and I'm going to make sure I don't miss any workers if I can help it. Again, I haven't missed any sort of gaps in my worker production there, so we'll keep going on here. We're going to keep making SCVs up until about 15 or 16.
SCV ready.
You can see I have my 15th in queue, 16th is also in queue. When this gas finishes, have SCVs go over there and start working. Okay, so now we have all of our resources are being mined and all of our gas is being mined. This is going to set up into our next stage of the game very well. Your gas is going to be used for things like upgrades, for teching, for units. It can be for a lot of different things. Getting your gas at this time allows you to set yourself up at a nice tempo. If you don't get gas for a little while, or if you throw down 2 gases, you might just have too much gas in order to spend. And I'll show you how they line up once we get to the next phases of our build. One thing you're going to want to really pay attention to is as soon as your barracks is done, start your orbital command. You do not want to miss that orbital command if you can help it, only because orbital commands help out your macros so much. They help you mine minerals a lot faster. They give you information. If you happen to get supply blocked, which you definitely never want to do, you can use a supply drop so that you will be gaining supply by virtue of just dropping a little bit of energy from your command center rather than spending 100 minerals on a supply depot if you absolutely need it. Ultimately, the best way to use your orbital command is with your mules, so we're going to go on to that part of the game. Okay, here we go. So as soon as this SCV is done, I'm actually going to cancel that so I can get my orbital started. Assign this to 2, submarine, and I do need another supply depot so I don't get myself supply blocked. One big part of macro is not getting yourself supply blocked at all, because it slows you down a lot. You never want to do that, and what I'm going to do here is rally this first marine to my front door. It's going to be for denying scouting, and by this time usually your SCV over here will have reached its destination as far as gathering scouting information. You do want to scout in one-on-one games so you know exactly what your opponent is doing, so you can see them, going for a rush or doing something tricky that you might not expect. We're not going to worry too much about scouting in this game, considering this is just about macro. I will cover scouting in every single matchup in later games so that you guys do not get confused. So I'm actually just going to pull this SCV out of here by virtue of just selecting him and running away, sending him back to my mineral patches. And once again, don't miss any SCVs. So once this orbital is done, start SCVs and call down a mule, which is usually the best investment for you. Make sure your SCVs are back at work. And from here, I'm actually going to throw down a second barracks. I'm going to keep production going. And one thing I didn't mention is that on every little building that you put out to produce units, make sure it's spinning or making units or whatever as much as humanly possible. You don't want to have idle time on any buildings. If you do have idle time on your buildings, it's either that you're making a mistake, you're not putting out units as fast as you could, or you're setting yourself behind in some way. But ultimately, you need to find ways to spend your money here. I have 128 gas, 55 minerals. I need to find ways to spend that. And usually spending that on army units is going to be what wins you the game. But again, you don't want to stop your SCVs for any reason. Don't get yourself supply blocked. Keep making units so that you can get into the next phase of the game. Checking my notes here, I need to also mention what you're going to be doing if I decided to throw down a factory instead of a barracks right here. I'm going to be going for a 3 barracks expansion in this video, which is very overly typical. Typically you actually don't want to do stuff like this, but if you're just learning the game, this is really not a bad build at all to get yourself integrated with it, especially to practice and make sure your timings are all as accurate as they can possibly be. On your barracks and on all of your production buildings, you can throw down little tech labs or reactors here, depending on what kind of units you want to put out. I'm going to drop a tech lab, and then I'm going to start my research on whatever upgrade you want. I mean, usually people will go for concussive shells first for their marauders, so that they can make a small little push, especially against Protoss. But I will drop a tech lab, and I will start that tech lab doing something for me as soon as it's done. So again, we're just going to roll into the next phase of the game here. Oh, I just totally got sidetracked here, but if I were to throw down a factory, I would probably want to throw down a bunker here at my front door. You don't need to get too reliant on bunkers, because the game of Starcraft assumes that the player that's going to win is going to be the one that basically macros the best. That is, that whoever can put out the better army, and you can think about it this way. I have 2 Marines on the field. Protoss at this time, it's about 340. They might have 1 Zealot, and 1 Stalker might almost be done. And that's what your scouting information is going to reveal. But if they come and fight you, you should be able to get units out to deflect that. So don't rely too much on static defense. Ultimately, just getting units out and defending with your units is going to be the best way to spend your resources, because it's going to help you out longer in the later game. So we'll go ahead and jump right back into it here. And there's not going to be a ton going on. I will just be staying on top of making SCVs, making Marines or Marauders or whatever I want to put out of these, and researching some upgrades, and I will be going up until it's time to expand. So let's go ahead and jump back into it. It's about the time to drop another supply depot. You definitely don't want to get yourself supply blocked. Even dropping it just a little bit early is not a big deal. And again, my Marine is now done. I'm going to start a tech lab on here, and then I'm going to start a 3rd barracks here in just a moment. Again, I'm going to send my SCVs back to the mineral line once they're done doing what I want them to do. Don't miss any SCVs. Again, there eventually will be just a little timer going off your head, just to say, don't stop making SCVs. And when it's time to make another SCV, it'll just say, hey, come on, get on top of this. I'm going to research my shells. On this one, I'm not going to make anything. I'm just going to drop a reactor. Again, I'm not going to miss SCVs. I know I did miss one for just a second there. And one thing I want to mention while it's on my mind, don't take the 2nd geyser unless you have a reason to. You're going to take the 2nd geyser if you're running for really fast upgrades, or if you're running for tech. I'm just running barracks units, so I don't need a ton of gas. You can see I'm even floating just a little bit of gas, and all I'm going to be spending gas on right now is a couple of upgrades on my tech labs, the tech labs and reactors themselves, as well as just a little bit from Marauders. So I really don't need to take a 2nd gas right now. I'll see a lot of newer players just take both gas at the same time for whatever reason. So don't take that 2nd gas unless you know why you want to take that 2nd gas. Go ahead and jump back into it.